welcome to this Ask the Expert. I'm your host, Michelle Blevins, Editor-in-Chief of R&R. Before I bring in today's guest, I want to give you a little background on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about some of the latest achievements from the Restoration Industry Association's Advocacy and Government Affairs Committee. You probably better know that as the RIA's AGA. It was founded in 2019, and I can tell you from personal experience that it has only gained momentum and steam since it was founded. The restoration lawyer Ed Cross was named the Restoration Advocate shortly after the AGA's inception. Since then, he has worked tirelessly to further the cause, as have others who serve on the AGA committee and others within the RIA Association altogether. The very first advocacy report was published in June of 2019. Since then, there have been more reports, keynotes, industry briefings, videos just like this, articles, and more. Today's AGA resources that are available to members only include things like Face the Advocate, videos featuring Ed Cross and key stakeholders from within the restoration industry realm. There's the TPA scorecard. There are also resources for restorers on pricing, including how to give pricing feedback, which can help influence Xactimate pricing in your market. And perhaps one of the most important elements, the position papers. Currently, there are 3 position papers available to RIA members as of the time of doing this interview in April of 2021. These are peer-reviewed statements by restorers for restorers on issues commonly encountered by contractors. These papers represent reasonable and fair approaches to the issues they address. Current position papers include third-party administrator scope change requests, third-party consultant position statements, and now the restoration pricing position statement, deviation from standardized price lists. This position paper was just recently released, and it brings up the issue that insurance carriers and their partners attempt to prohibit deviations from standardized price lists. So the core statement within here is that insurance carriers and their partners should not prohibit deviations from standardized price lists. And there are 4 main areas outlined to back up that statement. So on that note, I would like to welcome in the Restoration Advocate Ed Cross to talk more about this position paper, the AGA, and the future of the advocacy movement. Hey, Ed, thank you so much for joining me. So I'm going to jump right into the first question here and have you tell us a little bit about the latest position paper on a deviation from standardized price lists.
Yeah, well, the RIA through the AGA is very excited to have announced the release of its first position statement on pricing. And there are a lot of very important issues that contractors have been concerned with, particularly with respect to standardized price lists. And these price lists have been weaponized against restorers. And I have many files in my office that I'm handling where adjusters are sending messages to restorers saying that their company policy is to only pay Xactimate prices. And that if the restorer needs to charge something that's more than Xactimate pricing, then the restorer is going to have to collect that money directly from the policy holder, and the insurance company is not going to pay that. And so we brought this to the attention of Xactware, and hopefully everybody who's watching this is an RIA member and had a chance to take a look at the RIA industry briefing and the special videos that are available to members only on the RIA website. And on there, you will see some videos where Mike Fulton of Xactware was kind enough to join us and explain that Xactimate was not intended to be used in that way. It's not intended to be global pricing. And so we needed something in writing that was a simple, easy tool that restorers could use in discussions with adjusters to get past this point where Xactimate is being used like the 10 Commandments. It's not. And so we've got an excellent position paper that lays all that out.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these position papers. They aren't just created in an afternoon and poof, here you go, here's this one page. So what is the process of developing these? How long did it take this latest paper to be approved? How many revisions do you think it went through? It was quite a few. What did it take to make it happen?
Well, it all started with the formation of the AGA committee back in 2019. And I was fortunate enough to have been involved in that process. And we organized a series of teams to address each of the particular hot button issues that restorers were telling us that they were concerned about, such as issues with third party consultants, issues with TPAs. And a very big one was issues with pricing. So we convened a team of experts to deal with each of these particular issues. And we were so happy and blessed that some of the best thought leaders, some of the true leaders in the industry who have the highest degree of expertise in those particular subject matters agreed to be on these subcommittees and task forces and to do a bunch of research to figure out exactly what the evidence is. And as a lawyer, I'm looking for the facts. What is the evidence in support of a position? I hear an insurance company taking one position. I hear a restorer taking another position. I want to know what the facts are. So we convened a pricing subcommittee with some of the very best in the business who put together research, exchanged ideas, and basically discussed the different tactics and strategies that they had developed over the course of their career to help overcome some of these problems. So they formulate some basic positions, and then I tell them, okay, show me the evidence in support of each of these. Then they come up with a set of positions, and they put the positions into a statement, they refine it, they review it, and then the pricing subcommittee submits the draft position statement to the AGA. And the AGA reviews it, revises it, comments on it, and there's a very, very intensive process of refinement and fine-tuning that goes on with all of that. And the pricing position statement that I have on my computer, I have 16 different revisions of it. The final version is number 16 that I had in mind. And so the purpose of the RIA position statements is to come up with a set of peer-reviewed consensus positions that are fact-based, that are tools that restorers can use in their negotiations with various different stakeholders in the restoration ecosystem. So this particular position statement has been in the works since 2019, and it's concise. It's one page, and I'll tell you, every single word in it was very, very thoughtfully considered. There were multiple meetings where we went through all of that. And I am quite confident that what we have here is a very, very strong piece of work. And unlike a lot of opinions that different groups will put out, this actually has references to the authorities that we use for these positions. And those include things such as Exactware's Pricing Research Methodology White Paper, the pricing database white paper from Symbility, the license agreement from Exactware Solutions, which explains what their pricing is intended to be and what it's not intended to be. We've also included quite a bit of information that we received directly from Mike Fulton. So this is not a wish list. This is not contractors with a pipe dream. These are facts. And they're set forth in a concise way and are going to be very, very useful to deal with this extremely important issue that affects every restorer who's doing insurance work. Small companies, large companies, everybody in between gets hit with this same old refrain over and over from adjusters who are trying to use Xactimate like the Bible. Attention adjusters, Xactimate is not the Bible. And now restorers have a position statement that they can use to support their position on this.
Perfect. Okay, so taking this a little bit into the real world, let's say there is an adjuster who thinks that Xactimate is the 10 commandments or the Bible here of pricing, and a restorer who's an RA member has the position statement in hand. How are they using it? How are they getting it to the adjuster? How are they presenting it in a way that it's going to be effective?
So there's all different ways that this can be used, and we're very excited that the AGA is in the process of developing what's called the AGA Academy. And the AGA Academy is a training program that is going to explain how a restorer can use all of the various tools and resources that are available to RIA members only on the RIA website. And the very first session of the AGA Academy is going to be on June 29, 2021 in Orlando at RIA's Diamond 75th anniversary convention. And we're very excited about that. And at that event, we're going to have the AGA Academy on how to use an assignment of benefits, and we hope everybody will be there. That event is probably going to sell out. We're way ahead of prior registrations at this point in time, and we urge everybody to sign up for that by going to restorationindustry.org. But I digress. How do we use a position statement? All right, I'm going to give a cursory review of what you're going to get in the AGA Academy. A position statement, number one, educates the restorer and everybody on the restoration team about positions that they can hang their hats on. Now, these positions can be incorporated into conversations with adjusters. Excerpts of them can be copied and pasted into emails. If an adjuster raises an issue on a particular point, we've got a paragraph to deal with that. You can paste that in, or you can submit the entire thing. You can say, you are prohibiting us from deviating from standardized prices. And we'll get into a little bit more about the substance of this. But here is a consensus statement that has come from the Restoration Industry Association, but also we elicited feedback on this paper from people in the pricing world as well. This is not just restorers who contributed to this. We elicited feedback. We said, hey, what do you think about this before it ever got published? And we listened to that feedback and we incorporated a lot of that into this. So it can be in conversations, it can be in emails, it can be used in whole or in part, and it's an RIA exclusive member benefit.
Okay. All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You were talking about the industry stakeholders that you talk to, and I know that you've had conversations with a lot of different people in the industry, but so far you do have a Face the Advocate video series that you've done with Adrian Frank from JS Held, and you also have some conversations with Bill Loveland, the founder of Xactware. So I'm curious what you've seen come from those conversations so far, and then where you think the conversations are going in the future. Who's next on your Face the Advocate list?
Yeah, so you also left out from the list John Held and Sarah Rayleigh, and they were part of the Face the Advocate from our convention last year, and that was a very significant, very well-received event. So there's a lot of different things that have come from this, and one of the big purposes of the AGA, Michelle, is to have some free and open dialogue on these issues so we can shine the bright light of day on the points where there is not a fair and level playing field for restorers. So the conversation with Bill Loveland led to a series of conversations with Mike Fulton, wherein Mr. Fulton indicated to us that in response to the points that RIA had brought to his attention, that Xactware had shifted its pricing paradigm, and from less of a top-down approach and more of a bottom-up approach. And this had a significant impact in our view. And many restorers from many different markets have told me that they're having far fewer problems with pricing, and that the prices in many aspects are getting much closer to really where they need to be. And so another thing that caused a lot of aggravation for people was the classic Monday morning quarterback problem, right? You finish a job, you do it well, the customer's happy, and then you've got somebody who comes in a month later or 3 months later and who didn't see the loss, who didn't interview the witnesses, who doesn't understand the circumstances that the first responders were faced with. And they say, well, you could have done this differently and you should have done that differently, and you used too much equipment and your price is too high, and thank you very much for the excellent work product, but we're going to chop 35% off of your invoice. Well, we rolled up our sleeves and did some very serious work with the team at JS Held, who dealt with us in good faith, and we had a lot of robust discussions on those points. And this was something that was very productive. And we heard a number of things from the JS Held team that a lot of restorers were very happy to hear. And we talked about documentation, about providing receipts. We talked about daily and weekly equipment rental rates, et cetera. And RIA members have access to that treasure trove of information by logging onto the RIA website.
Okay. All right. So one of the misconceptions I've heard is that the AGA is just for larger companies or only for companies who are doing program or TPA work. That really could not be further from the truth. The RIA in general has major value, as does the AGA, for everybody, every contractor, no matter the size. So I'm curious what you would tell a smaller company who thinks, meh, there's nothing here for me. Or on the flip side, what would you tell a larger company, or maybe an owner who's a member of a franchise network, about the value that lies within the AGA resources for them?
Well, the value is very extensive for the small companies, and it pains me, it confuses me a little bit to hear that there's that misconception, but I'm happy to address that now. So let's just give one example, which is the pricing position statement that we've been talking about. This explains that standardized price lists do not necessarily represent the usual and customary costs of work. Insurance companies are obligated to pay the usual and customary cost of work. Just because something is in a standardized price list does not mean that's the only amount that the insurance company is obligated to pay. And in the position statement, we explain that and we give the basis for it. It also explains that these software companies do not set restoration prices, nor do adjusters set restoration prices. Restorers set restoration prices. They are the restoration market. All right. So at the end of the day, the insurance company is obligated to pay essentially the fair market value for the work. And as we explained in our position paper, and as Mr. Fulton explained in the industry briefing, the right price for any job depends on a whole variety of different factors. It depends on the needs of the customer, the target margins of the company, the level of service that they provide. It depends on the unique circumstances of each project. And it's really not feasible for a standardized price list to anticipate all of the different unique circumstances that restorers face. Maybe there's a 60-foot driveway on a 45-degree angle and you can't get a dumpster down at the bottom to haul debris. Maybe you're painting a 30-foot high ceiling, okay? So what's very, very clear in our position statements is the references to the Xactware user agreement, which explains that the prices need to be customized for each job. Restorers need to set their own prices. The purpose of Xactimate, by Xactware's admission, is to provide pricing that's used as a baseline to begin the preparation of an estimate, and then it needs to get adjusted to suit the particular circumstances of the project. A lot of people don't realize this, Michelle, but there's actually a statement in the Exactware user agreement, which is a contract between Exactware and the users, which says that the users agree not to prohibit any deviation from the standardized prices, right? That means that insurance companies have already agreed not to prohibit price overrides. Yet when restorers try to override the prices, they get all sorts of pushback. Now, we're not talking about TPA programs or a contract where a restorer has agreed ahead of time to set prices at a certain level. That's a different question. All right. But just in terms of the insurance company's responsibility for payment, there needs to be an understanding that the data that comes from a standardized price list is by definition historical data. Okay. They may be reporting on information from last month. And in many circumstances, we find that there hasn't been a survey for an extended period of time. So the numbers we have may be a lot older than 1 month. They may be outdated. Okay. So prices fluctuate. And as Mr. Fulton pointed out, at the end of the day, the correct price is something that's negotiated between the buyer and the seller and sets out the appropriate price based on the circumstances of that particular loss. Now, this is not to say that the insurance companies are obligated to just pay whatever number a contractor and a customer happen to agree to. Just because you get it into your contract doesn't obligate the insurance company to pay that. The insurance company is obligated to essentially pay the fair market value of the work. What do willing buyers, plural, pay willing sellers, plural, in this market generally for similar work where neither party is under a compulsion to buy or sell, where both parties are in possession of the relevant facts? The right price for a job is not one number, and that's something that has come out in Face the Advocate. It's a range of numbers, all right? And that range varies depending on the level of sophistication of the company and the type of service that they provide. So restorers need to make their own prices. They need to customize their prices, and they need to push back hard against anybody who tries to prohibit deviation from standardized price lists because they're violating the terms of the very license agreement that they're using for that position.
Okay, so for those people who are watching this, there is another AGA resource that has to do with pricing feedback. So people who are not sure how to offer pricing feedback or how to help adjust prices in their market, there are resources for that on the AGA website as well. So, okay, moving on. So what would you say is one of the biggest wins or achievements for the AGA to date?
Well, there's a whole bunch of them. We had a fantastic TPA survey scorecard that came out, and we're about to release the second one. You know, there is not a Yelp review or any kind of source for reviews of TPAs. And a lot of restorers jump on a TPA program without actually having the benefit of input or feedback from other restoration companies who've worked with that TPA before. So we conducted a very extensive survey. We put out a scorecard, and I've been working with the presidents of a number of these TPAs to discuss the results. And one of the things they asked us for was some more specifics about exactly what restorers wanted changed. So we did another survey to drill down on some of those specifics. And that is just about to be released. And I'm sending advance copies now to the presidents of the TPAs so they can see that. And we're going to be having some very robust dialogue with them, as well as some episodes of Face the Advocate. We're going to be talking about some of these issues. And for example, we have a statement from the CEO of one TPA who said that TPAs should not charge referral fees on projects they don't refer. This is a major sore spot for restorers. Hey, why am I paying you a referral fee for a job you didn't refer? It's like charging me for a cheeseburger and you don't give me the cheeseburger.
Yep.
So we're going to be addressing that in future episodes of Face the Advocate. We've got some very significant wins with third-party consultants, as well as on the Xactimate end. And we're getting lots of very favorable feedback from restorers who are saying that pricing and collections have really improved. And we're about to release a 50-state summary of the assignment of benefits laws, so that each restorer will have some ammunition to use when they have an assignment of benefits, so that they can explain to adjusters that the assignments of benefits need to be honored. And adjusters are very dismissive of assignments, and they need to stop doing that, but restorers haven't been armed with the ammunition. Well, we had a volunteer team of some very competent lawyers who worked very, very hard, who spent hundreds of hours to research all the law, all the assignment law for all 50 states. And we're about to release this incredibly big compendium. I'm looking for my copy here. The thing is this thick. There's a ton, it's tens of thousands of dollars worth of legal research, and that's going to be free for RIA members.
Okay, so the AGA at this point is only 2 years old, and this is a lot to accomplish in 2 years. So what needs to happen to keep the momentum moving forward at this pace? What does the industry need to be doing to get behind this movement and keep it driving forward?
Yeah, so this really requires the participation and help of everyone. The objective and the mission of the Restoration Industry Association is to educate, advocate, and elevate the restoration industry. And everybody needs to join the Restoration Industry Association by going to restorationindustry.org and make an investment in the AGA. We have lots of projects and initiatives that we're working on now, and we really want to get more into the legislative branch. We are working toward building a structure that will allow us to hire a lobbyist, but this requires money. And we need to be very mindful of attempts by the part of the insurance industry to try to pass laws to cut up restorers' rights under assignments of benefits. And it's going to take lobbying, it's going to take effort, it's going to take money to do that. Contractors have suggested an investment in AGA of $100 for each $1 million of annual revenue that the company has. So for example, a company doing $5 million a year in gross revenue would make an investment of at least $500. RIA believes that that's affordable and that that's reasonable. We've had many hundreds of companies make some significant investments, but these projects that we have on the plate right now could take 5 years to accomplish, or we could do it all in 1 year if we get more investments from more people. Many hands make light work, and we hope that everybody will join in and invest in the AGA by going to restorationindustry.org.
Beautiful. Okay, so before we wrap it up, let's talk a little bit more about convention. You talked about the AGA Academy that's happening. Is there anything else AGA related that's going to be happening at the convention at the end of June in Orlando?
Yes, day 2 is the Face the Advocate session, where I am going to have a special guest or more than one special guest from the TPA world. And we're going to be talking about some of these very significant concerns that restorers have with respect to working with TPAs. We have complaints about job volume. We have complaints about credentialing. We have complaints about customer services. We have a lot of complaints about the scrubbing of the invoices that take place. So instead of, sweeping this under the rug, it's time for us to have an open and frank dialogue on this type of issue, just in the same way that we did so successfully with Exactware. At the beginning of the convention on Tuesday morning, there's going to be a town hall with Mark Springer and friends, and he's going to be talking a lot more about what the AGA is doing. And then later that day is AGA Academy on the AOBs. And then on day 2, we'll be Face the Advocate dealing with TPA issues.
Awesome. Okay, Ed. Well, thank you. Anything that we left out? Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I'd like to show people really quick how to log on and find these AGA resources. If I could share my screen.
Absolutely. Go for it. I love it.
RIA members will sign on here, and we want to make sure everybody knows how to access this information because it's very, very important to find. So I'm now signed in, and I go here to advocacy, and I'm going to go down to member only AGA resources. Going to give you a glimpse behind the curtain here. We have 5 different categories of resources. Again, these are available for RIA members only. The first one is the industry briefings. And this is the one that I talked about a little while ago with statements from Mike Fulton of Exactware. And you can view the videos there and a bunch of other material. So that's in the industry briefing section. Here in position statements, you see our position papers on third-party consultants. And you can see the statement regarding scope change requests. When the TPA comes in and says, oh, change your scope, how do you deal with that? We explain how. Here are the third-party consultant position statements. And now we've got the new one regarding deviation from standardized price list that we talked about a little while ago. Here in the Face the Advocate department, you've got my talk show. Face the Advocate is the show where restoration industry stakeholders respond to consensus positions taken by the RIA. And here's Adrian Frank, parts 1, 2, and 3. And we also have the TPA scorecard report that you can download. Right here, a lot of robust information comparing and contrasting the different services and aspects of the different TPA programs. And then we've got pricing resources here. How should you handle spikes in building materials, for example? And that's explained there. So it's a whole treasure trove of information, Michelle.
I love it. Awesome. I'm glad that you did that. That was perfect. Good idea. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Ed, for your time. Thank you for all of the information. For those who are watching, be sure to keep up with R&R and the RIA for future AGA updates. There's always stuff happening. There's always new updates. So be sure to keep an eye out. And Ed, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the wonderful work you do and all of your contributions to RIA and AGA and the whole industry. You're one of a kind, Michelle. We're very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you in Orlando.
Absolutely. Everybody be there.
Everybody who's watching this.